What's going on, guys? Welcome to today's video. We're back working on Brads Forged R33.4 with the Forged 25 in it again today. You would have seen from the last sort of video I put out about RB oil pumps and oiling issues that I sort of made. It started off as a video of this, which I then actually turned into another video because this sort of got put on a back burner until we had a talk to Brad and figured out what we're going to do about our issue with the oil pump drive. So it has been decided I want to pull this crank out, get the crank machined for the extended snout for the oil pump drive on the crank. This came after trying the billet oil pump gears, which I was hoping would get us out of trouble and a bit more of a tighter budget, but the clearance from the crank snout to the gear is too great for my liking. There's too much clearance for it to be, you know, half engagement on that gear, no matter what it's made of. My personal belief is that it's going to let go at some point. So it has been decided that I'm going to take the risk in pulling this crank out, get it machined for his Nitto crank collar. That way we have full assurance that it's going to be a nice tight fitment, proper clearance to the oil pump drive gear, as well as complete engagement on that oil pump. With his N1 pump and then billet gears, this thing should be bulletproof as far as oiling goes, along with his extended sump and the other modifications we're going to be doing. So previously I was very apprehensive about doing this simply because as soon as I pull this crank out and I have to put it back together, I'm now responsible for the bottom end, which I didn't actually build. Doing it this way without pulling the head off and pulling all the pistons out, it makes it pretty much impossible for me to actually check all of the bearing clearances properly. There are a few things that I can do just to keep everything in check, but as far as, you know, from the perspective of building an engine, the way I would want to build an engine is I can't do all of the things that I would like to do and check. So it is a bit of a risk that I'm taking doing it this way, but as I discussed with Brad, I reckon at this point this is less risky than it would be to put that billet oil pump gear in the oil pump and just run it, because I reckon that would let go. So I've spoken to Brad. It's a bit of a mucking about, it's a bit of a pain, but Brad's pretty happy to make sure this car is sorted when it leaves here. He's been putting a lot of time into this car. It's been sort of 8 years in the making. He's happy for it to just take what it takes to make sure it's right. And personally, for me being, you know, an engine builder, checking the clearance on that crank snout against the drive gear on the oil pump, I'm simply not confident that it would last, and I'm more confident that this is going to work better. Long story short, we're taking the risk, we're pulling the crank, we're going to get it machined, we're going to get this thing sorted. So first things first, I've got to pull the pickup off and then start pulling the rod caps off. I've actually had to just make a little bit of room, so we've got somewhere to do this. The engine room is a bit crowded at the moment. I think this is about engine number 5 or 6 we've got going on in here at the moment, between blocks and stuff that are away at machining and stuff. So we are quickly finding that this engine room is getting very small. Need to upgrade it soon. But anyway, I just got to pay a lot of close attention pulling this down to the bearings, let them tell the story of how it's been behaving. It has been run for one event and some dyno time, so we know it's not completely wrong. But again, I have no idea who built it. I'm putting complete faith that whoever built it properly did a good job. So I'm pulling this down, I'm going to be very closely inspecting everything, because that tells the story of the engine, how it's been running and how it was built. So I'm pretty confident it's going to be fine, but very important for me, as I said, taking responsibility of this bottom end now, to ensure that it's going to be right when it goes back together. Sorry guys, spewing that the battery in the camera went flat before that last segment ended, but did get the motor apart. Just pulled all the stubs out with the nuts and then cracked the girdle and pulled the girdle off and then pulled the crank out. Pretty self-explanatory really. Anyway, pulling this motor down, it all looks quite good, all the bearings look great. There's nothing here that has me any cause for concern. There are a few little scores in a few bearings, possibly a few little things to go through, but overall pretty happy with how this thing came apart and what it looks like. One thing I did notice though, a lot of you RB nuts on the channel will see something is missing in here. So obviously this build has been based off a DE block because it has no oil squirters in the block, which isn't a big deal. They're not completely necessary. They do help cool a little bit, but considering this thing's running dedicated E85, it's not getting massive combustion temperatures anyway, so it's not a big deal. Plenty of people with RB30s and stuff and DE based builds making heaps of power without piston squirters, but interesting pick up there to find that it's actually been based off a DE block. So anyway, all of these crank journals look great. The crank looks really good, so it's ready to go to the machine shop and just have that snout put on. So once that snout's put on, we'll get these billet gears into this oil pump with that full engagement on the gear, plus the nice tight fitment of the gear to the crank snout. This oil pump should be super reliable. So keen to get this done properly. I'm happy that we decided to do it this way. Like I said, it is still a bit of a gamble throwing this back together the way it is. This is not the most ideal way to do this, as I've stated. This is why I was apprehensive about doing it in the first place, but I'm confident that it's going to be alright, and it's not worth Brad spending the money on the labour for me to completely pull this motor down. You know, it's only just been finished, so it's only done one event and everything looks to be fine. So I'm happy enough to do it. Anyway, we'll get this cranked to the machine shop and we'll pick this up when it gets back. Alrighty guys, it's been a bit of a wait for the machine shop. It took about 2 weeks to actually get this crank machined. They were super busy, so either way, did get it done, which is awesome. For anyone who is looking to do this modification in your build or during your build process, it costs, for us, at our machine shop that we normally go to, it costs $250 to get this snout actually machined onto the crank. So you've got to add that cost into the actual cost of buying the collar as well. Now most machine shops, it's a pretty common mod, so they all know what's going on. They're all pretty clued on with exactly what's happening. In the case that they are not, this particular Nitto collar actually does come with instructions on how tight to machine it and what sort of tolerance it's meant to be, etc. So as long as you give that to them with the product, they should be able to figure it out if they don't already know. But in our experience, just about every machine shop knows about this modification and does do it. So we've got our crank back, we've got our lovely full engagement snout on there now. So I've still got to actually put the gears on and check the clearance now that it's actually on the crank. That's what I'm about to do now. I've just finished cleaning it up. Obviously with things coming back from the machine shop, they're usually covered in swarf and they actually put a coating on to protect the metal as well, the surfaces of the journals. So it's very important that you clean it out really well. I usually just heave a brake clean the whole crank down, bottle brush these oil galleys quickly, and then blow it all out. I do that outside and then I bring it back in here and then I do the same thing, but just brake clean and then make sure I get brake clean in those journals and actually blow it out with the air and clean it out really well and make sure it's perfect and ready to go back in the engine. So we're finally at a stage now we can actually assemble this engine, which is great. Upon the last episode of doing Brad's 33, a lot of people had a lot of input on the yellow jacket coils, telling him, you know, how bad they were. He was thinking about upgrading coils on this car anyway, and I sort of let him know that, you know, if he wants to upgrade the coils, it's best to do it before the tune so that all of the dwell times inputs are all correct on the ECU. So we've gone ahead and upgraded to some split fire coil packs. So we're going to this R33 is originally Series 1, so it does still have the igniter in the loom. So what we're going to do is we bought Series 2 coil packs. So these are igniter in core split fires, so that should do the job really nicely. We've also got some new plugs, obviously to Series 2. Brad's coil pack loom was very sad anyway, all the plugs in it were broken. So we've got to make Brad a new coil pack loom to suit his current loom in the car, delete the igniter because the Haltech doesn't particularly need it, and we're going to be running some Series 2 split fire coil packs. Now we tossed up which coil packs to go with.
Now, it was very important for Brad, as you saw in the last episode. Brad's got those beautiful RB26 engine covers. It was very, very important that Brad could still run those engine covers, so it was really important for us to find some coil packs that were going to fit under the engine covers. I tossed up whether to try the Golby's generic R35 coil pack kits. We've had great success with them in the past, so a really, really great unit, but I couldn't find any definitive answers on whether they would actually fit under the coil packs. I believe they would, but I didn't want to take the gamble. So we know that split fires are a good unit. They're a nice, good, proven unit. They're easy to get, suit the stock sort of loom, so easy to replace. You know, it makes it pretty easy running just the split fires. I do have you know, worries about how hot they're going to get under them covers. As a lot of you guys know, that's why no one really runs the covers on the RB25s, is because there's no air sort of circulation underneath where those coil packs are, and they get hot and start to break down. But being that this thing's going to be E85, I'm hoping it won't be very hot anyway. Shouldn't run too hot, hopefully it won't get too hot under there, and I'm hoping these split fire coil packs will do the job and be fine. So that's what I've decided with. They were supplied by FAF Automotive. Alrighty guys, so I've just actually measured this gear up on the snout, and we have about 5.5 thou is what I'd call that, with the way I measure it. So anyway, between that 4 to 6 thou, I reckon is absolutely perfect. So this is, yeah, I'm very, very happy with this. Very happy to be putting this together now. So it's, you don't, like I was saying in the last guys, about the actual gears, you don't want too much slop. There was way too much clearance we had in that last video, but by the same token, you don't want them too tight. You want them to be able to move around a little bit, so they do need a little bit of clearance. And yeah, like I said, anywhere between that 4 to 6 thou I reckon is perfect. Any tighter than 4 and you're starting to run into some other potential issues. But yeah, that's going to be great. And we've got all that engagement, so we know it's not going to walk around. So this is bloody perfect.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.
Alrighty guys, bit of a saga. I pretty much had this thing ready to go, almost ready to put the sump on. I had the sump RTV ready to go and everything. Then I realised I forgot to check the pickup depth. I checked the depth of the pickup and it was actually really short on the new sump, which sort of made sense. So I started freaking out a bit. I cleaned everything up a heap and I started looking into what I can do about getting this pickup space properly. Started going through the boxes of stuff that Brad actually supplied with the car, and I actually found that it did actually come with a spacer. It was just hidden in a box. So I managed to get a spacer. That space in at about 10mm, which is exactly what we needed for the pickup, which is good. So I'm glad I found that. So I sorted that out. But what I actually did find in the process of that as well is that although they give you the spacer for the pickup, which is great, the actual flange on the sump here is actually a lot thicker than the stock sump, than the stock steel one. So I found that the sump bolts, there's hardly any thread engagement for all the sump bolts. You know, it's enough that you can nip them up, but not enough that I'd trust it. I would really like some more thread engagement. And you know, it's very important because if they find a way to rattle their way loose or get stripped or something happens with only that little bit of thread engagement, and you know, the sump drops or something, then we're in big trouble. That's, again, it's goodbye to everything. So very important that we have that bit of extra thread engagement. So at this stage, now that I've cleaned everything up, I'm going to leave it off for now until I get some new bolts to actually bolt the sump on. So yet another setback, which is a pain. It's a bit of a overlook on my part. But yeah, need some longer sump bolts to get this sump on reliably and happily. But apart from that, we're pretty much together. I can flip this over and we can start fitting Brad's new coil packs and start on his new coil pack loom. There's still stuff to go on with. But I was really hoping, today's Monday, I was hoping to have it in the car and on the dyno pretty much tomorrow or Wednesday. But that's not going to happen, but it is what it is. We've waited this long to get it done properly, and it's going to have to be done completely properly. So again, with these pickups, always lock tight the pickup bolts. Again, if they find their way loose, you're in big trouble. So always lock tight those. And although these pickups do have an O-ring, a rubber O-ring, I'm just absolutely pedantic about not trusting just the O-ring on its own, because once again, if it's sucking air, you're going to lose a lot of oil pressure. It's going to be goodbye to everything. So I always put a little bit of RTV on them as well. But it's just important to make sure you don't put too much on. Same with an oil pump or anything else, so that it doesn't squish out into the center and cause a restriction. But just a little bit of RTV around the back side of the O-ring, like on the outside, just to make sure it can't suck any air. Anyway, that's what she looks like all on there. And I'll swap out Brad's engine mounts. We've got some nice GK Tech solid mounts here to go on. And I've still got to make his return line for his head drain, which went on in episode 1. And then yeah, we'll get in there. We are getting there. Just gotta get some bolts so I can get the sump on. Alright, so I've modified Brad's coil pack loom. So these are some new coil pack plugs which I ordered for Series 2 coil packs because the plugs are different. And for anyone else who's doing this conversion, when you repin the Series 2 coil pack plug, the power and the earth are actually switched over from the Series 1 coil packs. So yeah, power, earth, and then trigger. So swapped all them pins over and then deleted the actual trigger pin and put just a 6-pin Deutsch connector on it. That way I can just repin the loom end in the car and delete the igniter, and that'll be our Series 2 split fire coil packs. So all well and dandy. Rex went shopping this morning. He managed to get some new sump bolts for me, which is awesome. So these are a 12mm bolt, which is a little bit better than these bolts, so we're gonna have some way better thread engagement to keep this sump happy. So I had ordered some, but given that Rex could get some, I told him to grab them because we've just had such a big problem lately with shipping because of COVID and stuff that I don't want to trust that the bolts that I ordered are going to be here this week. So this at least allows me to continue on getting this thing done, because once the sump's on, this motor's essentially ready to go back in the car again. So it's going to fast track us a little bit. So we'll get the sump back on again.
Alright guys, so we have a sump on. As you can see, this is where our head drain goes to. Now generally with these external head drains on RBs, I try and keep the drain on the passenger side, just because that's the way that the radiating assembly rotates. You naturally get just a little bit more vacuum on the other side, which draws it back in. However, the passenger side on this engine with this manifold, I'm not sure exactly what manifold it is, but it's incredibly busy, and there was really sort of no way that I could get it done and keep it away from everything and keep it neat and tidy and get it down to here. So I decided to run that one down that side. With the way the head drain is designed from high octane, you know, it can go either way, it's not a big deal, whereas the Ross one actually points down this way. So it's not a huge deal, it doesn't particularly matter too much. It's just that, yeah, generally I try and do that because you do find that it will make just a little bit more of a natural vacuum on this side because of the way the crank moves. But we are going to use this -10 bung here to incorporate into Brad's catch can setup, so that Brad's sump actually breathes along with the covers. So his catch can's only got 2 -10 inputs, so we're just going to run this. It's down here and like just next to where the air filter goes. So we'll bring that one up there and just tee it into one of the breathers from the covers there, and that should do fine as far as breathing goes. So I'm just going to chuck a new set of plugs in this thing. I did check these plugs yesterday. They are BCPR 6Es. 6 is for boosted things like this where we want to be running, you know, quite a bit of boost pressure. I try and go to a heat range colder than a 6. So we go to a 7. So I'm going to get these down to 0.6 this time. I normally run a 0.8. But due to the fact that I have worries about how hot these coil packs will get, I'm going to try and get the plugs down tighter to a 6 or a 0.6, so that I can hopefully keep a fair bit of dwell time out of these coil packs, so that I don't have to, you know, pump heaps of dwell time in and get them really hot. So try and keep them cool and try and do it that way. So I'll get these plugs, I'll get them in, then all these coil packs can actually get bolted down. I can put the covers back on, and then we're ready to get this thing back in the car soon, which is exciting after how long this has been, this process. But at least we know that it's completely right. We've got our high volume sump, billet geared with extended crank collar in the oil pump. Like, this thing should be reliable as, it should be awesome. So. Alright, so I've run into a little bit of an issue. So the Series 2 coil packs, or these split fire coil packs, so they only give you 3 possible ways to bolt it down. And I've actually never realised, but only 2 of these holes in each coil pack holder are actually threaded. I thought all 4 were threaded, but they're not. There's only 2 that are threaded in each one. And I've noticed that of the 3, it's the odd corner. This is the one that weirdly falls into a position where it can actually thread down. So that would mean if I was to leave it like that, I would only be able to put 1 bolt in each coil pack, which is silly. So all I'm going to do is actually take these off and flip them over. As you can see here, they are the right way up at the moment, but I don't know if maybe the Series 1 and Series 2 are different. I'm not sure, but either way, all I'm going to do is take these holders off and flip them over, and that should actually change these 2 to these 2, which would allow me to actually bolt each of these coil packs down with 2 bolts where they should be. So. Alright, so with that retainer flipped over, I can actually get 2 bolts in each coil pack, which is good. It helps them nice and secure. I went and found a few more M8 bolts to hold this down for Brad because he only had the 3 in there. And yeah, that should work fine. So that's awesome, coil packs installed. Alrighty guys, so I said it at the moment I looked at this engine, and I'll probably keep saying it for as long as I ever look at this engine. It is just such a nice looking motor. It's incredible how much better the RB26 covers actually make these things look, and particularly with Brad's paint on these covers. Such a beautiful red. It's just so nice. And then with, you know, the nice clean big sump from Aeroflow there, it's just, what a tough looking thing. I love it. Anyway, I just had them sat on here just to do that little visualize edit for you and take some photos while it's in the engine room. Because as you know, I do take these covers off to actually get it in the car so that I don't scratch them. But yeah, so that's the motor finally ready to go. It's been a long process of trying to get parts, and mistakes were made, and you know, not mistakes were made, but issues were found that had to be fixed in order to make it what it needs to be. But here we have it. Nice big sump, extended snout, billet oil pump gears and an N1 oil pump, rear head drain, you know, all of your typical RB fail safes for what this engine is intended purpose is for, which is to have a great life of, you know, infinite laps of killing tires and just hopefully cop every bit of abuse that's thrown at it. So, and yeah, like we've got our split fire coil packs under there, which fit under the cover nicely, very well. You know, again, being how much room is under this cover, I would imagine that probably the R35 coil pack setup from Golby's would fit, but it's just that I didn't want to spend that much of Brad's money on a gamble because I couldn't get a definite answer. So, you know, at least the split fires, we know they're good. They're a good coil pack. They're easy to get. They bolt straight in. Now that we've converted the loom as well, it's just going to be easy for him to, if he ever does have a need to replace them, to do that. And at the end of the day, whether the split fire coil packs or the Golby's coil packs, if they're under the cover, they're going to have the same issue with heat. So if that's going to be an issue, it was going to be an issue with either one. So it is what it is. But you know, being E85, hopefully this thing doesn't actually get a lot of heat in that area, doesn't get a lot of heat soak, and hopefully it holds up fine. So that's the end of this one, guys. Hope you've enjoyed. I'm glad this thing's finally ready to go in the car. As soon as we've got the hoist free, it'll go back in the car, hopefully later this week. And then we'll get it on the rollers and get it tuned up for Brad. Hopefully get a bit more power out of it. So tune in for the next one. Thanks for watching. Smash like, smash subscribe. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out, guys. See you, bye.